So I'm not sure how it's taken this long, actually, but Nick Pags, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yes, I was just about to say it has been way too long for this to happen, but here we are.
Here we are, about a year later with the podcast launching. I literally don't know how it's I guess we're just that busy, you know?
Yeah, we're busy people,
We're
Jay. We
busy
are busy
people.
people.
All right. Well, ladies and gents, Nick Pags is here. I'm really excited today because Nick and I have been doing this thing together for a while online and with coaching, and we don't do bullets. We don't have a script. We don't have prompts. So you are getting a real and raw conversation between two besties. And I'm really excited to take you along on the journey. So, Nick, could you just take us back for a second? Because right now you're in Brazil, which you kind of
Yep.
are like living part time in the States, part time in Brazil. You are in an evolution of your own business. You, of course, are the head mindset coach, the only mindset coach inside of Empower. You've been with us now for 4.5 years. I mean, you've been with us since it started. You were literally the second client for me to create Empower. So you've been through a lot of it. And you've just had a lot of different evolutions. You and I met back in the fitness industry. So we were both celebrity personal trainers at a bougie spot in New York. And that's where we became work besties. So take us through just a little bit of your journey, how you got to where you are today. Cause the way that I see it is, gosh, you're like a mindset ninja, growth expert, behavioral change specialist. You're like an optimization coach. I mean, you have got all these fancy titles. And if you've ever been in Nick's world, you know exactly what he does do. And what he does do is magic. So how'd you get here?
I would say that the simplest way to explain it is that it came from just being in the practice of working on myself and working with others to help them improve themselves. And that started in the fitness industry, like you said. Owned a gym in Manhattan and was a co-owner of that and doing a bunch of side gigs throughout that. And as I came up in the fitness industry, I started at the age of 17. So when I began that journey, it was very much working really hard to get people to kind of trust me and make some changes. And because I was like always the underdog in that situation as a kid in an industry with, at that time, the old guys who were in their 30s and 40s. And I would
Now
look
you
at them
are
and be
one.
like, yeah, I'm that guy. I would have to somehow compete, because when you're the 17-year-old kid, people don't trust that you know what you're doing. And for a lot of the beginning of my training experience, I didn't know what I was doing. And it was a lot of, as we call it now, messy action, where it was just like, go create, do, and build, and trust that when you're doing the right thing and being a good person while you do the right thing with your business, that it'll all work out. And it did. And over time, what I found is that people fell more in love with working with me about the mindset piece of it more than they did about the fitness piece.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that necessarily. I knew there was like a distinction between the way I was doing it and most people were doing it. But over time, I found that people were leaving there feeling really, wherever it was, feeling super connected with themselves, inspired, and no pun intended, yet all the pun intended, empowered
Woo.
to move forward in their lives and have a better day, a better week,
Yeah.
and ultimately a better life.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've had the privilege of watching you run group classes and also work with clients one-on-one. Can you just talk for a second when you were sort of integrating this mindset piece, which if you've ever worked in the fitness industry, y'all know it's like that's what we do as trainers, right? We do some of that, but you do a lot of it. So, were you actually giving your personal training clients like homework and prompts? Were you just talking them through things while they were working out with you? What did that look like?
In the beginning, honestly, more than anything, it was just relating what we were doing with our physical experience to what was going on in our mental experience. And I think as I'm saying it out loud, we do a lot of this too in the coaching and empower and mindset coaching and business as well. Let's use the thing that we're coming up against, like the actual thing. And at that time, it was lifting the weights and, pushing the weight up, squatting the weight down, whatever it was. Let's use that as a metaphor for what's going on internally, mindset wise, spiritually. So a lot of it was, and I really didn't intend for it to be this way. It just kind of fell into this. I was watching people sprint on a treadmill in a class, and they came in saying the fastest they would ever run or could ever run on a treadmill was 9.0. And it was a lot of just questioning Like, is that true for you?
Yeah.
Could it be something more? Could 10.0 be possible? Could even 12.0 be possible in your future? And if there's a chance that you could push yourself to another level today, what would that look like? If these limitations that you say exist weren't there, just hypothetically, what would it look like for you to push yourself? And it was amazing to watch people's physical experience completely transform just because of a story they were telling themselves.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, oh, we're on to something here. I don't have to like push them to pick up more weight, and I don't have to change much of the training program. I don't have to become some physical body whiz, because you know it, Jess, the people we worked with, some of these trainers were the smartest people I have ever met. Like, shout out to all those guys and gals.
Yeah.
It was amazing to watch them and how they understood the body after years and years of education. For me, I was not that guy. I had a brief understanding of the body, and I studied, obviously got my certification. So I'm probably not giving myself enough credit for how much I did know about the body. But what I definitely got was the mind.
Yeah.
And when I could help people relate the mind and the body, it was like everything would transform.
Yeah. So I've had the pleasure of watching you coach now for years, and there are some things that you bring into all of your coaching, all of your deep work that you do with your clients, but I also know just from a friend level, you do it yourself too. Are you open to talking about some of the sticky season that you went through recently?
Absolutely. Bring it on. Let's talk
Yeah.
all about it.
So here you are, you're this like, you're a light. I mean, you're an absolute light. If you're not watching on YouTube, come check it out. He's got biceps too, right? But you just are. You bring energy into every room. You've got the smile, you've got the energy. And here you are on a platform, whatever that platform is, pumping people up, right? And it's not just a motivational speech. You're not just yelling at people. You're really working on the subconscious beliefs. You're rewriting the stories and you're pumping people up. But yet I know for a little while you were in sort of a darker season, which I had also just come out of my own dark season. Was it difficult for you to show up for other people and be this light when you were sort of in your own darkness? Was it something that you were sharing? Have you shared about it now? And sort of, can you talk us through like what that process was?
Yeah, there's a lot to that question. So yep, I would say that I probably went through the darkest time that I can remember in my life. Maybe 2007. I lost my great grandmother and her son, my grandfather, within 2 days of each other unexpectedly, and that was like a super dark time for me. I was a sophomore in high school. Other than that, this was definitely the darkest time in my life and the longest stretch of it by far.
Yeah.
It was probably a year, and still feel like I'm working through that, like the end of that chapter, that season. And I'm just now becoming super open to sharing, not because I was scared to share or felt embarrassed, or maybe some of that at times. I think more than anything, Jess, I was just lost and confused. I didn't have an answer, and I felt like I wasn't even able to package my experience enough to share with people with any intention or purpose other than just like venting, which I definitely was given space for by some incredible people in my life. But I think during that time, what was really interesting was that in the beginning, the perspective I've always had is when you're going through it, it's selfish to not share it, because we learn so much in those moments, and there's so much that we can offer people so that when they come up against that, they don't feel alone. They don't feel like they're the only one going through it. They don't feel lost. They don't feel confused. And maybe some of my experience can help them. But at one point it shifted where there was an intuition that said, for lack of a better term, like, shut up, just stop. It wasn't that there was some of the imposter syndrome, like, I'm not feeling great. Who am I to get on a call to support others in feeling great? First thing I had to confront was that, and I realized that me feeling great has nothing or very little to do with me supporting others feeling great. I don't necessarily prescribe to, I need to be in a fantastic mental state in order to serve someone else in getting there. From my understanding of the work that I do with people, it's not about me during that time. So I actually can release where I'm at and what I'm going through to hold space for somebody to work through their stuff. So I really continued that process as I worked through a lot of this. But there was a piece of me at one point, and I think this is interesting about business. I have always been taught, like, when you set things up and you set standards for yourself, and commitments for yourself, you just keep going no matter what. And that was the very like grind, hustle, rough, tough, hard to bluff, used to hardship, as my grandfather would say. Just keep going.
And sports
And
too,
yeah,
right? Like
sports
growing up
was
an athlete.
huge for
Yeah.
that. Just everything was grind. And at one point it felt like I was backed into a corner with the grind mentality. Like I literally couldn't get out of bed. I was starting to have some really scary thoughts about, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do this. I don't identify with that at all. Like I never have. I mean, at that point, I never understood even what that could feel like. And
Yeah.
I started to be in that scariest part, Jess. Nothing around me was providing proof as to why that should be. I had just moved to Austin, Texas. I got married to the greatest person that ever exists on the entire planet. Personal opinion. I
can vouch. I back that up.
had so many. Yeah, there we go. I had so many great things happening. Like I was healthy. We were just like, so many things were opening up. Business was good. All the things were happening. So I had, quote unquote, no reason to be feeling that way.
Did that make
and I
it
think that
harder
was
for
the
you?
most confusing part for me.
Yeah, did that make it harder? Like you didn't deserve to feel that way, or shame on you, or how dare you?
Yeah. I think I judged myself
Yeah.
a lot. Like, who are you to feel this way? Like you're not on what's actually right in front of you. But it brought me to an interesting question. Just because the things you want are in front of you, does that actually mean, do those things, or are they supposed to reflect the experience you're having internally? I think was the question that came up for me. Was like, just because you have the money, or just because you have the fulfillment, or just because you have the success, or just because you completed that goal, does that mean you're supposed to be feeling overjoyed and positive and all the things? Because if it was like, yeah, if you have the thing, then you're gold. You should be happy. You should be grateful.
Yeah.
And it definitely didn't feel like that. So it was a scary, dark, and confusing time for me, for sure.
Yeah. Do you have any tangible tips or like tools or strategies that you were using or have used to sort of get out of it? Or was it more time and just allowing it to, like, the ocean wave to kind of pass and ride that wave?
I would say that the part that I'm still working through is how to share this experience. So you're getting the first of this out of anybody. It was a very secluded time for me. It was a very like self-discovering, like go internal time for me to ask a lot of questions. I'm still not sure, again, how to present that to the world yet in the most effective way. So I'm going to do the best with what I got so far. Maybe this will
We're
change.
here for it.
What I can say is that for the first time I listened when my heart was saying stop. It was really the first time I did that. And here's why that was scary. That meant stop running programs that were making tens of thousands of dollars.
Yep.
I'm not saying this is for everybody. This was just my experience. That meant stop taking on one-on-one clients, even though there were people asking to work for tens of thousands of dollars. That meant stop going and buying things and investing in programs and investing in coaches and all of the stuff that I have been telling myself was going to bring me more energy at that moment wasn't.
Yeah.
And everything intuition wise was saying stop. So it's a really hard conversation to share with people, because I want people, when they're in their tough moments, to really question, can I keep pushing here? Can I go and work through this, break through this? So I'm not advocating for people stopping all the time on their journeys, but I am advocating for people asking the question, what is it that I need right now? Where am I at? Who do I want to be? And what is my highest frequency choice right now. I think that's the best way to explain it. What's the highest frequency choice? Because the highest frequency choice, the thing that's going to put me or give me the best opportunity to put me in a high frequency, is not always the thing that feels good.
Right. Right. But also the highest frequency choice isn't always the thing that feels good for quick instant gratification, right? Because when we think about highest frequency choice of like, you know, I can work on my business, let's say, or I can sit here and watch Netflix. And right now that feels like a high frequency choice because I just need to rest or it feels really comfortable. That isn't necessarily always the best choice either, because that quote unquote high frequency or that thing that gets exciting or you think you want to do might not be great for the long term. So there's a level of discernment that has to happen. And you and I both have been working on this for years and talking about it for years and working with our clients for years together and separate. And it's the ability to just know yourself and to have that self-awareness and to even trust, you said trust your intuition or listen to your intuition. And I know for me, I've spent years saying actually out loud, like, but I don't even hear my intuition. I can't hear it. I don't even know. I don't feel my gut. And so there's a level of just sitting in quiet or silence, or maybe it's trauma, childhood stuff or journaling. There's like different things that we can do to really hear ourselves. But I know for me, and this show's not about me today, it's about you. I went through a very similar experience that you did around the same time for about a year, a little bit longer than a year. And interestingly, it was triggered when we left New York City and when we hit RV life. And it just kind of like got quiet all of a sudden. And I had been meditating for a decade, but like it was actually the first time it was quiet. And so when it got quiet, it was like, ooh, I don't even think I like what I'm hearing. I don't think I jive with these thoughts. And then wait a minute, what thoughts do I want to create? And there was just so much noise, and that quiet was really scary for me. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I very much resonate with it. And the quiet, I think what it did for me, it was a lot of quiet. It was a lot of sitting. For me, it was the first time I got real serious about meditation, because it felt like meditation and prayer was the only other place I could go. Like it was either give up on all of this because all the doing wasn't working anymore. And nothing was feeling good. I mean, no action was feeling good. That is a really scary and terrifying place to be in. And if you hear me say it and you feel what I'm talking about, you can nothing going out and having drinks, friends, not take yourself on a trip, not buying yourself a cool new car or something. Like literally nothing was doing it. And it almost felt like the universe was the most obvious it had ever been. It was being so blunt and just going, dude, I need you to go in. Stop looking outside.
Yeah.
Go in. And I had no idea what that felt like or looked like. I'm saying it now in hindsight, but at the moment it was a lot of just like emptiness. I wish it was crying, Jess. I wish it was like feelings and emotions. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just nothingness.
Yeah.
And I would just like put my feel like I was crying, but nothing was coming out, and just say, I feel so empty. Like, I'm so sorry. I would say to her all the time, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Because she just met that has this like incredible energy, vibrant, makes everybody feel good, going around the world, speaking, doing all the stuff, coaching. And then a couple months later, she's now babysitting, is what it felt like.
Yeah.
Everything about me was like questioning who I am and my identity. And you say it a lot to me, Jess. You tell me the me that showed up on calls for class, 2, 3, 4, 5 was the guy doing burpee backflips with like high energy, pumping everybody up. And that is who I was in that season of my life. And now definitely this past year has really asked me to tone down and to trust in like who I am is enough to just show up and be who I am and let my heart speak. And that has been a big shift for me in my work specifically, but just in being a human every day.
Yeah. And it's one of my favorite things about you. And I was going to bring it up and edify you for it. There was nothing bad or wrong with either version. And just watching your own evolution has been incredible. But you come now with such a like grounded, calm energy, like you said, speaking from the heart. And it wasn't about Nick, you're too much. It wasn't about dimming your too muchness or dimming your light. it was the energy you brought. I mean, I don't know, we were 5 years younger, maybe that was part of it, but
Yep.
you used to come in with this, let's go. I mean, you had a podcast back in the day named Let's Go with like
Yep.
14 O's. And it was just, everything was like this big, loud, exciting thing. And now it's this more calm, grounded, internalized, very thoughtful, very intentional approach to everything. So, can we circle back to Bia for a second? Because I think this is a really important conversation to have. And I know it's something that you guys are navigating and have been. But here's this incredible woman that you married. Like you said, she sort of married this version of you. And just a couple of months later, you're going through something. And so, for better and worse, right? We're together. And now you feel as almost she's like babysitting you. Did that affect the relationship at all? And if so, how did you guys navigate that? And was it like she constantly would check in weekly or monthly, hey, how you doing? Or just sort of let you go through your own thing? What did that look like?
There were a lot of different things that it looked like, a lot of different ways it looked over the year. I was learning, I think when we sign up for a relationship, I have found just from working with a lot of people around relationship that most people sign up for the person that they married and as they were when they married them, which is a really scary thing to do, because what I've learned about relationship, want to call it marriage, relationship, to me, it's all like the same thing. It's like once you get to a certain point where you're committed to somebody, what you've signed up for is to be with them as they grow as humans. And that means they're not going to be the same person in a year from now that they were when you married them or when you started dating them. So more than marrying a person, what I realized is that I married like this partner in evolution.
Yeah.
And the question became, when I was going through it, right? It's easy when they're going through it. You're like questioning, should I be with this person? I questioned, should she be with this person? And that was a really weird thing to be in, because I love nobody more than I love my wife. And to watch her just be space for me taught me a lot about what love means. And I like to think I do the same for her. And I like to think that if she was ever in a position like that, that I would just hold space and trust that she'll make it through whatever she's got to make it through. But I think the hardest part, Jess, was that the way that, at least at the beginning of it and through most of it, I was coping with things was very private. I needed to go on long walks. I needed to have days by myself. I needed us to get Airbnbs when we were traveling that had separate rooms, because I couldn't work in the same room, because I think there was shame and guilt and embarrassment, and I had to work through my own stuff. And I couldn't do that with her standing over me. I still don't do well with her by my side while I do that. I don't know if it's a masculine energy thing or what.
I was gonna say, it's just because you're distracted. That's all.
Yeah. She's so distracting because she's so freaking hot. But it's this, like, it was this acceptance at some point, acceptance that she's here for it. I had to accept that.
Yeah.
And that was a big portion of my development through this process.
Do you remember her ever saying that? Like, Nick, I accept it?
She said to me, she looked me in the eyes one time. This time I cried. I walked in the room after and I cried. She looked at me and she said, I don't care what happens. I'm not going anywhere. So you take your time.
Yeah.
And I remember that feeling. I'd said something to her when we were like, we were talking about our marriage story is kind of crazy. It was very fast and wild because of visa purposes and whatnot. She's Brazilian, from Brazil. And at one point I had said to her, like, I always imagine that if I were to get married, the feeling would be something like the feeling I feel towards my mom, which is just like truly what feels perfect and unconditional love. Yeah. Like there's nothing, my mom could totally screw up everything and I'm still just like, I just love her to the moon and back. And I kept saying to her, like, that's the type of trust and confidence. Like, I know that if I went and shot someone in the head, it's probably not the best thing my mom would do, but she would be by my side and be like, I'm not advocating for this, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I said, I've always wanted that type of trust in relationship. And when I was in that space, truly hating who I was and hating how I felt, almost disgusted with myself, I think
Yeah.
was the best word. The fact that she could see who I'm becoming in that moment, and I could really trust that she was going to be there. Like that was where I was like, okay, yeah, this is it. This is the person, and this is who I want to keep fighting through this stuff with. So I think, yeah, to answer your question, it was a really interesting time, because in the beginning of relationships, as we know, with most people, that's the honeymoon period.
Sure.
We had 0 honeymoon period, literally and
I was there the day you
figuratively.
guys met. Come on. There was a honeymoon right then and there. It happened that night. I was there. I witnessed it.
Our honeymoon period was the 6 months where we were virtually in love, like
Yeah.
where she was in Malaysia and I was in New York. That was our honeymoon period. When we finally got together, that's where everything went apeshit, like
Yeah.
all of it.
You have just so many transitions
So
though.
craziness,
Yeah, both
like
of your
absolute
livelihoods, where you're
craziness.
living, your relationship together, the world had shut down. I mean, I could like a laundry list of just, I think a lot of people not saying similarly went through what you did or what I did. We all have our own experience. But of course, over the last couple of years, I say it all the time. It was kind of like we all were living in a snow globe that had been settled for a really long time. And then it was taken and shaken or shook. And someone shook the snow globe, and all of a sudden the snow was flying all over. And, some of us danced in the snow and some of us kind of cocooned up and found somewhere to like nuzzle under and hide while the snow was falling. And it was just like an awareness that had happened to everybody, and so many transitions. And I forgot that she lived in Malaysia when you guys started. I like totally forgot about that. And then came back
Crazy.
and just all of that. And then moving out of New York and this, that. And then you were living with, family, and as were we, and then we're on the road. And so just like so many transitions in work and life that naturally it's going to cause some discomfort. I mean, without a shadow of doubt, and questions, right? It's not just the discomfort, it's the questions, which so many people experienced of, what am I even doing? Is this what I even want? Is this who I want to be with? Is this the job that I want? Am I playing small? So I think a lot of people can even just resonate with that aspect of it. And, is it a coincidence that it sort of happened all at the same time? I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
The which we'll talk about in a second, nature and nurture, right? With the be do have. So it's like, did it happen because of what was going on, or was what was going on because it happened?
Mm.
So I want to talk about be do have, because that is one thing that you talk about a lot. You teach it a lot. It's one of our clients' favorite thing when you talk about, they take it with them. It's always something that people regurgitate in all of their coaching programs. And it's a phenomenal concept, and it's very different than fake it till you make it. So can you break
Yeah.
down be do have? Because I am sure that there are elements of that you were using and leaning into when you sort of were in this space. So how did you use it? What is it? Talk us through it.
Yeah. Be do have is not a concept of mine. I learned it in transformational training work and coaching, and found it to be incredibly effective for me. The most basic description of it is lead with your beingness and nothing else. Like, who do you want to be in the world? And that drives you. So the way that I like to explain it is that most people live their life from the opposite, the have, do, be. So they say, I want to have confidence, so let me go do confident things, and then I'll be confident. So they go, okay, I want to have confidence. What do I do? What do I do? I don't know how to do that. I don't know what to do to build confidence. That's the question I probably get most often, just in general, whether it's a business owner or somebody who's just working through a tough time in life, or somebody who's trying to go to the next level. They're like, well, what do I have to do to get more confidence? Because I know that that's what's missing. And instead of starting from the, I want to have this, so let's go do it, where everybody gets blocked, I challenge people to start from the beingness. So I want to be confident. Great. So be confident. And they're like, well, that's not as easy as it sounds. And I said nothing about easy. What does it look like to be confident? And everybody has an answer to this.
Yeah.
The first thing that people who are lacking confidence say is, I don't know. I don't know what confidence looks like. And when you get out of your own way and just like stop being a butthead for a second, you realize that you do know what confidence looks like. If someone were to ask you to describe confidence, you'd say, okay, on the most basic level, it's someone, who kind of sticks their chest out. They, I don't know, look you in the eye. They speak clearly and they have like a powerful tone of voice. They seem to not get shaken by other people's opinions of them. So they'll go down a list of what they think confidence is.
Right.
So it's okay, great. So you've explained to me what confidence is and what the beingness is. So you're going to be that. That's your goal today, is to be confident. And they're like, well, how? Just check in with each moment. So this is where the doing comes in. So now I'm being confident. I go into the coffee shop. I'm going to order my morning coffee. On any other day, I'm not paying attention to who I'm being in that moment. I'm just ordering my freaking coffee. But today, I've made a choice to be confident while I do so. So I'm in line and I go to order my coffee. I get the grande frappuccino, Lux flippy dippy whip dew with the caramel dressing
That's my
on the
order.
side. That's your order. That's the one. Yeah, there it is.
I knew we
So
drank
I
the
make
same
my
thing.
order and I turn around and I see a stunning young lady. Of course, before I'm married, I see a stunning young lady and I'm like, hey, barista, I got her order. That one's on me. And I turn around and I say, hi, I'm Nick. Nice to meet you. Everything about me is going, no, 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 that's not you. What are you doing? That is so not you. Run away. And I start to notice that I've identified with the story of lack of confidence. And when I just am being and doing the action that aligns with confidence, no matter what moment I'm in, the next thing I know, I start to do that. And then I do the next thing. And then I do the next thing. And I do the next thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I have confidence. It was here all along.
Yeah.
So it's a simple, just like embody it. And then every single moment, that's why I invite people when they're starting a be, do, have process. Like I say, your to-be list runs your to-do list. Make your to-be list in the morning and make it super short. 1, 2, max. If you've been practicing this for a while, three words to be, but start with 1.
Yeah.
Because when you realize that every single moment you're committing to being that, imagine every single moment committing to being confident. I'm talking about every breath. That's a lot of brain power. It's a lot of consciousness and awareness. So start with that one thing and then take the action in each single moment that aligns with confidence. You will be amazed at how your life reflects that very quickly.
Yeah. So I want to rewind for a second. When you encouraged this person that you're speaking to come up with traits of what confidence looks like, you were able, or they were able to come up with a list. And so they came up with, they stand with their chest tall, they speak confidently, they look in someone's eyes. In my head, I was thinking their firm handshake, right? They smile at strangers. Like, these are things that confident people do. So when you're going to create your to be list instead of your to-do list, those are literally the things that you would put on your list. And so, yeah, you turned around to the woman and you offered her a coffee and said, this is my name, but you did it by going through the checklist of, I'm going to stand tall with my chest out, firm handshake, smiling, all these things. So when something feels really intangible, like confidence, you created tangible action steps or tangible definition checklists simply by asking the question of, well, what does that actually look like? What does that mean? So I really am hearing that, like, the first step of it is taking the thing that you want to be, which is ultimately coming from the thing that you want to have, and then unpacking it, like dissecting that thing, because we can create a definition and it's our own definition. It's not right or wrong. It's not Googleable. It's your definition of what you perceive confidence to be, or having a certain amount of money or certain amount of followers, what your business looks like, right? That person that you follow, that you love how they show up. It's like, well, sit with it for a second. Why do you love how they show up? What about them? The second thing that I just want to reiterate, because I love this about you, is that being is not sitting around doing nothing. So when we hear beingness and you say, be, do, have, I know immediately people think, okay, cool. That means I get to sit around and just wait and manifest and sit in a bathtub and shoot my money gun and it's all just going to appear. And it's actually not that at all. It's understanding who that version of you is, or that person, or that place you want to get to. What is that person being? How are they and then you can go to the doing, but then you have to take the action, and then you'll have the have, right? And you get the thing, you create the result. So just 2 things there. I love how you broke down confidence, though, because it is such an intangible thing that people get tripped up on. And when you break it down like that, it's like, well, yeah, that is what I think about when I think about confidence. It's like even how they dress. For me, that's part of the definition. It's that, like, extra little, everyone that I see that looks, in my eyes, confident, it's the way that they sit, it's the way that they walk, it's the way that they talk. And so we can do those things. very
Yep,
simply.
absolutely. And I would even challenge someone if they're stuck on this whole, like, I don't even know what being it looks like or feels like. It's okay if you don't know what it looks like or feels like. You've practiced the opposite for a long time if you're so confused about it. So what I would look at is three simple points. Either your verbal language, what you're saying, your body language, what your body's doing, or the way that you're thinking about it, your thoughts. If you look at those three areas and you aggressively adjust one of them, for me, because I come from a physical experience background, like all personal training stuff, if you tackle the body first on whatever it is, if you want to be joyful, if you want to be confident, if you want to be free, if you want to be peaceful, if you, whatever your beingness is, we'll stick with confidence for now. Adjust your body language to fit that. So someone says, I'm not confident. And I say, well, no shit, you're not. Like, look at your shoulders.
Yep.
Look at your head. Listen to the way that you're speaking and the words that you're saying. What are you thinking about yourself? None of those things reflect confidence. Do you think you get something in the mail that says like, hey, congratulations, you have confidence, and then all that stuff changes? Or do you think you change that stuff and then confidence is a byproduct of that experience? Confidence is not something you just like happen to stumble upon. Confidence is something that gets created when you adjust your physical, verbal, or mental experience about life. So simply, if there's no girl in Starbucks, walk into Starbucks with your shoulders back, your chest up, and look everybody in the eye. If you did those three things, you will adjust your state, because those are all state adjustments. If you want to change your state, if I'm feeling very low, that's a state adjustment, either physical body, verbal, or the way we think about things. So as you're going into this beingness, just attack it from one of those three things. And the body is the easiest one, right? Joyful. If my body is being joyful, I'm not curled up in a ball. I'm not head down. I'm certainly not frowning. Like, smile. There's science that shows. I did a science project in 7th grade on the study of laughology. It's a real thing.
It is.
If you smile, it is a real thing. If you smile for 3 minutes, I think it was 3 to 5 minutes in the morning consistently, it sends signals to your brain that you're in a positive mood. You want to call it fake it till you make it? Sure. Smile. Just smile.
Yeah.
It's allowing your body to teach your mind what's going on.
Yeah. I'm so excited. We are going to an event, not together, but together in April with the one and only Dr. Joe Dispenza. We're going to his week-long advanced retreat. And so there's some pre-work that we have to do. And I mean, I've been consuming his content, binging it for years, 5-6 years, something like that. And so I've been diving into the pre-work, not sure if you have yet, but it's a lot of reminders of the stuff that we teach and of the stuff that we do. And, one of the things that he says all the time is that your personal reality, which is how you perceive the world and how you show up in the world, your beingness, your personal reality will create your personality. And over time, your personality, repeated over and over and over again, becomes your mood. And your mood over time becomes how others perceive you too. And so we can get stuck in these loops of, being this type of person that we don't want to be, or this type of person that we're not aspiring to be. And then he always says that your familiar past will sooner or later be your predictable future. And so if you keep being the same thing and expecting different results, that would be the definition of insanity. So if you keep thinking the same thoughts, showing up the same way in your body or your emotions, then you're going to continue getting the result that you've always had. And so then actually you're a fortune teller or a mind reader, because you'll know exactly what to predict. The funny thing though, is that we collectively as humans, we do that intentionally because it feels safe, because that's what we create as our identity. So if we're the person who's always, Eeyore, then we are actually looking for things in our life to validate us being Eeyore, which is crazy. Our minds are so powerful.
Yeah, and what we believe, we will always find proof for.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited for the Joe Dispenza retreat, because I binged Joe Dispenza for, I would say, 10 days about 3 years ago, I think. 10 days binged. I bought his book. I read as much of it as I could, the Supernatural book.
Yeah.
And it was wildly difficult for me to digest. So I just kind of put it down and stopped. And then other than that, like those 10 days, I've watched one 15-minute meditation of his on YouTube, like probably 30 times, but I don't know much about his work. So
Oh,
I'm
I'm so
super stoked
excited.
to like get into it. But I have found what you're saying to be incredibly accurate in my experience, especially when we can like, so if we can get our body to step into something that we might not be feeling mentally, and this is again coming from my fitness background, we can teach our mind to think different things because of our physical experience. And when I watch people start this conversation of I'm just not that, I'm saying, okay, you're incredibly committed to your Eeyoreness and your crankiness and poutiness. I admire your commitment. I wonder what your life would look like if you were that committed to the other areas of your life, like confidence and freedom and fulfillment and joy. You clearly have a knack for commitment. You've been
Whew.
committed to your poutiness for a long time. So I wonder if we could just leverage that same gift of commitment that you have to go towards something that feels really good for you and invigorates you and lights a fire under your butt. What would that look like for your life? And can we just take those same skills and strategies you use to keep yourself down to bring yourself up? You always have, in my opinion, you always have what you need to get what it is you want for your life. It's all within you. And I know that sounds super cheesy, but it's never about, I need to go get that thing or I need to create this thing. It's that you have everything you need, except the resources are being used for stuff you don't like. Your resources are being used on being pouty, on having a crappy job, on making no money, on complaining. That's what you're using your gifts and resources on. What if we just use those same gifts and resources that you're so committed to on all these other areas that fire you up? You would be amazed at how your life would reflect the internal when you start to change it. Everything outside will reflect that.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of living into it.
So I have one more question for you, and hopefully you can help with this one, because I know that there are people in the audience listening who they get it. They conceptually understand what you're saying. They're fired up right now. They're ready to take action. And then when they go back into their bubble in the world, when they go back into their normal day-to-day, their job, their family situation, a lot of times other people that are surrounding them don't believe the same thing, don't know the same information, and aren't practicing it. So, and I came from that world where when I was a teacher, it was like complaining was the easy thing to do because that's what everybody did. And I'm not shitting on the people I worked with, but like the reality was, if we were doing complaining and gossiping, and so it was easier to be in that low vibration to just fit in, it was really hard for me to express how I wanted to grow, and that I was reading Tony Robbins and doing bodybuilding competitions because it wasn't really it wasn't really accepted. And so what would you say to the person who's like, okay, I'm in, I got it. I love this, Nick. Yes, everything. And my world around me is not there yet. And I feel unsupported. I feel scared. I don't feel comfortable and safe.
There's a piece of you that will probably have to die for the new you to be birthed, is the saying that you've probably heard before. And I couldn't believe in anything more. And here's why. You have worked, however old you are, this many years on creating the person that you are. If this is your first bout in really going like, okay, I absolutely want to change. I'm ready to commit to a new life and a new way of being. I want to make more money. I want to have more success. I want to have a better relationship. I want to have a relationship. I want to feel joyful, whatever it is. If you're in that position where you actually want to change, understand that, say you're 30, for 30 years, you have taught yourself who you are, how you've been. This is my identity. This is the person that I am. You've taught yourself this for so long. Now you want to change, and most of us want to change overnight because we love stuff to happen quick. And you really feel like you're changing. But then you go back into life, and the first thing you do is you start to blame mom, you start to blame dad, friends, coworkers, sister, brother, whoever, or partner specifically, that they're still treating you as the old you. And I question why you think it's appropriate to ask anyone or any circumstance or situation around you to change to meet you where you are when you just got changing. You have taught them to treat you a certain way for 30 years. Don't be mad at them for doing what you taught them to do. Now you get to teach them something different. And if you've ever had a teacher in school who got mad at you when you got the answer wrong, you remember how freaking horrible that feels. Like you should have the answer. You should do this. The teacher that sits with you and goes, okay, that's a good try. Let's work this problem out again. Where'd you get stuck? Where was it hard for you? Let's try it again. Jess, you know, as a teacher, that teacher who's willing to take the time and work through something with you is the one that changes your life forever, who helps you believe that you can. You need to teach people by being patient with them that they can treat you different. This happened with my brother. He did a lot of work, a lot of transformation, and he was truly, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, the most forgetful and disorganized mess I've ever met in my life. Love him to death. That's who he is, or was. He went through this big transformation and he finished it a couple months, right? And like walked into the world like, I'm the new me. That was a couple years ago. And to this day, he is still pissy and moany that people aren't treating him different. And we had this conversation last week. I said, what right do you have to get upset that people are treating you how you taught them to treat them, how you taught them to treat you? What if you accepted that they worked so hard to listen to you and understand this is how he is, this is how he is, and now you have to take the time to teach them a new way of being around you. Don't get mad when life is treating you the way you've always been. Life is going to show up as you've taught it to show up. Money is going to show up as you taught it to show up. If you want something different, be patient as it all meets you. It's going to treat you different over time because you're either being enrolled or enrolling at every given moment. You're either being enrolled or enrolling. So if you're enrolling people into this new version of you, you're not getting mad and complaining that they're not catching up. You're trusting that the more I am living into this, the more what needs to stay will vibrate in and get more connected to me. And the more that needs to go, whatever needs to go, will vibrate out. And I use that term very intentionally because it's not like get rid of mom, get rid of dad, get rid of friends, get rid of partner. What doesn't fit when you're just being who you want to become will just slowly realize that like, this is not my space anymore. And this connection is not here anymore.
Yeah.
And I found this just like, it's scary, but I've worked with people, a couple people who really started to work on themselves, made a big change. And over time, we're like, they're getting divorces.
Yep.
They're moving past business partnerships that they committed to because who they're becoming doesn't have space for that anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like a beautiful thing when people accept that and honor that and go about it in a way that is respectful and honorable to those in your space.
Yeah, absolutely. The visual that comes up for me is, the radio back in the day. Back in the day, we had a radio and you had to use the search button or like the seek button to find a radio station that wasn't staticky. And so you tune the station and it comes up and you find one that's not staticky and you sit with it for a moment, but you're like, oh, this isn't really my music, or like, this is country, or this is R&B, or this is hip hop, or I'm looking for like pop or 90s. And so we're all just like vibrating. When you talk about these frequencies, we're on different channels. And sometimes the music genre, the channel changes, and it's okay to want to leave that room and say, I'm not really into this channel anymore. And people will naturally do it. And that in itself is something that we get to practice letting go of, the detachment of that and of people. And also one thing that I just want to sort of put a bow on is that you opened up that conversation with a part of you might have to die. And in my experience, that's not a one-time thing. So anytime you're up against this sort of new evolution, which is why we named the business that, when you're up against this new evolution, this new moment of growth, this new chapter that you're stepping into, a part of you does have to die. And it can be really, really difficult. And I know when I look back at my dark year that I had, that's exactly what was happening. I was stepping into a new version of myself. And it was this shedding of a layer of of 36 years of a story, of identity, of title, of accolades and awards. And I know you and I in the fitness industry, even 18 years I worked as a trainer. And at that time in that year, I let all of my like 45,000 certifications expire. And it was the first time in 18 years that I let them expire. And it was really cathartic. I knew I wasn't going to train anymore. I'm not going back to it. I can if I want to, but that chapter was done. And, not renewing any of those certifications was sad. It was
Yeah.
painful. It was letting go of the identity of this top trainer, right? And these things that we did and had worked so hard for. But it was also like there's no room for more if I don't let that go, if I don't put that
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
Yep. And people and things come into our lives for reasons and seasons, as someone once said. I don't know who, but it's a great saying. And they'll come in and they'll play the role. And as you evolve, they may no longer play a role, or they won't play the same role. And we have to get really good, I think, at grieving in our lives, because we're always inviting new opportunity, which is awesome, and new things, but also like grieving the role in which that person played, that a role in your life, or the role that job played in your life, or the role that mom and dad played in your life. It's not that they're no longer there or they're not important or any of it. It's just they play a new role.
Yeah.
Based on who I'm becoming. And I think that that's really beautiful. So it's taught me a lot in a crazy way about like death and grieving, because death is happening all the time, just like life is happening all the time. And I've learned to really appreciate and honor and find beauty in both, because the more that like things are changing and quote unquote dying in my life, the more I watch like space opening for new things and more things coming to life. So I find that to be a really beautiful worldly process. And the more that we can honor it and accept it, specifically as entrepreneurs, the more freedom we create for ourselves and joy we create for ourselves.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm just grateful that you've been a main actor in my movie role and not just an extra in the
Same.
background getting coffee at a coffee shop for some chick, All right. So before we put a bow on this, because I could talk to you literally forever, we have done that many a times.
Yep.
I would love to ask where people can find you. How can they work with you? Where is best to connect with you? Give us all the goods.
The easiest way to get in touch with me is Instagram at I am Nick Pags. I am Nick Pags. And in terms of work, like we've talked about, and I gave a very brief overview, it's a read for me of it, like what's next. As of right now, what feels good for me is working with a small group, 10 or less, one clients at this recording. I have available for one-on-one coaching. I don't even know like when the last time is that you and I have really talked about the business side of this. What really resonates with me, and there's no right way to do this, but what has resonated with me that feels aligned is that I have been focusing on very intimate and intensive coaching. And what that looks like is I talk with my clients every single our time together. We do it all, but there's no specific schedule. So if we need to get on a call every day that week, we do it. If we need to spend 2-3 hours on the phone, we'll do it. It's unusual, but we'll do it. If we spend 5 minutes on a call, we'll do it. The idea is when we are breaking through or working through our heaviest stuff, it is a constant battle with what we have habitually created for ourselves. So we have to be visiting it in the moment of our emotion around it in order to really look at it, is my experience of it. So I found that if I could work with a smaller group of people and give more of my time to them, we can target and see the things that are coming up and blocking them when they're live and when the emotion is heavy on them. And then we can do the work through. So if that's something, as you're listening, that you're interested in, it's definitely a life-changing experience. It's a minimum of 3 months together. It usually goes 6 to 12 or more. But it is life-altering in just the most gigantic way. So super grateful to be doing that style of work. And whoever's listening to this, please know, because this was something I needed to hear a couple months ago, you can do whatever the hell you want. Even if you've never seen anybody do it that way, even if it doesn't seem to make sense because nobody's done it in the market, whatever it is, just explore and trust, like, this might be cool because it feels cool for me right now. Just keep doing it. And when it's aligned with you, you won't have to work so hard. Everything will just kind of attract its way to you, which is just the best feeling. So I invite whoever is listening to that.
I love it. I love it. I love you so much. Let's do a couple rapid fire questions. You in?
Let's do it.
Imagine you said no. That would be so awkward.
That would, nope. Thanks for having me. Good night.
Bye. All right, cool. So little Nick, what do you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a daredevil. I remembered this yesterday. I wanted to be a stunt devil.
Really? I thought you were going to say a soccer player. A stunt devil.
Definitely soccer player, like as I grew older, but like I just wanted to like fall off stuff and like hit my head really hard and be okay.
Wow. I'm into it. I like it. Well, that just threw me for a loop. Are you currently reading anything or listening to any particular podcast or consuming anything that you're loving?
Always a huge fan of Lewis Howes' School of Greatness. He is an incredible human and deserves every single like and listen that he gets. I'd say on the book side, I'm listening again to Loving What Is by Byron Katie, which is just, you could read it 1,000 times and it always brings you back to just the most foundational, important things. And Outwitting the Devil is another one that is a little more challenging for me to get through, but it's a fantastic book. And then what is the name of Ed Milet's new book? It's like The Power of One More.
Yeah.
Really kick-ass book. If you want like a 3-day read that just fires you up, it's really inspiring and good stuff.
I love it. Best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Wow. These are supposed to be rapid fire. That's such a big question.
Like favorite music artist? John Mayer.
John Mayer is an obvious one. Best piece of advice. I'm like, this is so lame, but also it's just the foundation of everything. My mom and dad are just like, be a good person. The rest will figure itself out.
Yeah.
Be a good person. Lame. It's so real. And I've found the more that I've gotten into like having more success, making more impact, having more money, like, and the darker times, the more confusing times, the crappier times, it is the one thing that holds true every single time. If you're being a good person, you'll always win no matter what. Maybe not in that moment, it'll feel like it, but as you just like trust that goodness, it'll just keep pouring back into you.
I love it. $50,000 question. If I were to hand you a check tomorrow for $50K that you had to use in your business in some capacity, you could break it up. You could use it in one lump sum. What would you do with it?
That's a great question. I would find a way to invest it back. I mean, that's again, very general question. I would find a way to invest it back into my education and understanding of stuff. What I'll tell you what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't pay for like some service to get done for me. It would be something that evolves and expands me so that the business, it's like teaching, like buying somebody a fish or teaching them how to fish. I would do something that teaches me how to fish. So whether that be like a coaching experience, whether it be a retreat, whether it be like a course in college or something, go back to school, I don't know, but it would be something that helps me elevate and evolve and grow.
I love that. You heard it here. If you are a fishing coach, reach out to Nick. He's looking to learn how to fish.
I'm looking for fishing coaches, specifically bass, sea bass. Thank you.
All right. And we end every episode with this. So we both know that our business is a reflection of us, and it will only grow to the extent that we grow. And we are always growing and evolving. And that's why we named the company Digital Business Evolution. So what is your next personal or business evolution?
I think my evolution now is truly stepping away from, because I've been there, the grind and hustle culture, and really getting a taste, as I have been the last couple months, of what does it look like to ask myself without any limitations, like, who do I want to be and what feels like high frequency or good vibes or aligned in this moment. And I've found so many times that it's not the grind and it's not the hustle. And the coolest part about this, Jess, is that my relationship, my business, my personal health, physical, my mental health, and my spiritual health have all grown immensely in the last 5 months ish, because I've been listening to that And it's like, I'm doing the least amount of work I've ever done, making just as much money or more than I've ever made. My relationship, I'm doing the least amount of like trying to figure it out and change it. And it's just the best it's ever been. It's everything is like so opposite of what I've been taught and kind of raised to honor, which is just like the harder you work, the better of a person you are. And it's not the opposite either. It's just sometimes it's hard work. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
So really listening and challenging all of my limiting beliefs. That's like that's the evolution, challenging all of this is the way that it is, and playing in the I don't even know that I don't know.
I love it. Nick, I love you dearly. I can't wait to have you back for another round of Empower. I can't wait to hang with you in Miami for our little trip coming up, and Joe and all the things. So if you love this episode, which I know you did, make sure you take a screenshot, share it out on social, tag Nick at I am Nick Pags, and tag me at I am Jessica DeRose. We really had to come in strong with those affirmations of who we were, you know?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
DeRose isn't even my name.
Nick Pags isn't even my name. So no, there we go. It's just a bunch of liars over here. Honestly, don't listen to anything we just said.
Oh, it's hilarious. All right, friends, the best gift you can give back, though, is to tag us and let Nick know what some of your biggest takeaways were. And anything you need, it'll be in the show notes. And as always, cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.